everyone. Today is our third class, and we're basically having a brief introduction about one of the most ancient civilization on Earth, Egypt. Okay, so to talk about Egypt, one thing that we just have to talk about first is the Nile River. To the ancient Egyptians, the Nile River is basically everything. It provided them with irrigation water, fertile soil to grow plants, and hospitable habitats, etc., etc. We know that Egypt was at the north of Africa, so actually, except for the Nile region, it's desert all around, and that's why the ancient Egyptian cities were all built near the Nile. But here I just want to have a little digression to show you through an interesting fact how long ancient Egyptian civilization is. You can see that in a timeline, the famous Egyptian queen Cleopatra is even closer to Neil Armstrong than the time that the first pyramid was built. That is how crazily long it is. Okay, now back to the Nile River. So the Nile River flows from south to north into the Mediterranean Sea, and at the end of it, it splits into different streams. This area is called delta. At the southern part of it, areas are hard to reach because there's a lot of rocks and stones. This region is called the cataracts. Also, the Nile River is very unpredictable. Sometimes the water in it is too high, flooding the ancient Egyptians. Sometimes it's too low, creating drought periods, while sometimes it's perfectly fine. Because of this unpredictable nature of the Nile River, and the fact that ancient Egyptians relied so heavily on the Nile River, so the Nile River was also seen as a god, and people always afraid of it. So here at the start of the Nile River, that's Upper Egypt. And here in the Delta region at the end of the Nile River, that's Lower Egypt. In very, very ancient time, the two parts are separated. They have different culture and they have different people. Usually, people in Lower Egypt live in cities and they're more educated. People in Upper Egypt live in countries and they're more wild and traditional. One day, a legendary king named Narmer fought against Lower Egypt and unified the entire Egypt. He brought together the two Egypts and made them one Egypt. And we can see this through archaeological evidences. This is the unearthed Narmer plate. It directly shows that the king Narmer had both the Upper Egypt's crown and the Lower Egypt's crown on his head. And that is a very direct indication of this unification. After the king Narmer, the king of all Egypt is called Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is believed to be the god king. The king is also the god, so people believe that Pharaoh actually has the power to control the Nile River. The Pharaoh usually have a long beard, and the tools to take care of the sheep. The sheep here means people, and a tools to farm. Also, because pharaohs are god king, so they have to marry another god to keep the blood pure, and that is the reason why the most ancient Egyptian pharaohs married their own sisters. So, about ancient Egyptians' burials, we all know that they mummified their leaders, raveling them with linen and put them in sarcophagi. But actually, before that, people were just simply buried underground. As time goes on, rich people want themselves to be buried specially because they believe that there's an afterlife that they will enjoy after they die. So they want to have important items buried with them. They want their bodies to be well preserved, and that is basically the complex process of mummification, which later turns out to be actually unsuccessful. And finally, they want to be buried in special places, which are the pyramids. But one thing I want to mention here is that the pyramid actually evolves, like from early age step pyramid, mastaba, to the real pyramids that Egypt now is famous for. For example, like the Great Pyramid of Giza. But very unfortunately, because within the pyramids, there's a lot of ancient treasures. So before archaeologists really discovered any pyramids, they're all being robbed. The ancient Egyptian society is polytheistic, meaning that people all get to choose different gods to believe in. The ancient Egyptian gods usually have an animal head and a human body. For example, the god of knowledge, Thoth, have a head of a bird. The most important god in Egypt is Ra, and the priest of Ra is very, very powerful, sometimes even more powerful than the pharaoh himself. Well, common people can choose to believe in their own gods too, and one of the very famous one is Osiris. The story of Osiris is that he died somehow and resurrected, became the king of the underworld. He decided the deceased, a good person or a bad person, and decides where he is going to live his afterlife. One thing important about Osiris is that there's an idea that he cares about his people. He actually wants his people to live happily, and this idea later gets more and more all around the world. And a famous example is Jesus Christ. Yeah, Jesus Christ actually got the same idea. For Egypt, having such a long history, it can basically be divided into 3 periods of time. And the first one is Old Kingdom. This is an era of massive development of ancient Egyptian cultures. For example, the pharaoh, the pyramid, the hieroglyphics, and the Sphinx were all developed during this era. At the end of the Old Kingdom, common people got angry, and they rebelled and they fight for their rights. Part of the reason why is because of the rising power of Ra's priests. And finally, they won. And here it comes to the Middle Kingdom. During the Middle Kingdom, the priests of Ra have less power, and common people live more happily. Their god Osiris was very popular during this period of time. The Middle Kingdom ended when Hyksos from the north of Mesopotamia attacked Egypt and even conquered the entire Egypt for a very short time. But I think that this actually benefits Egypt because Hyksos invasion brings ancient Egyptians a very useful tool, the war machine chariot, and this helps Egyptians gain power in military, and they're about to engage in military conquest. So here it comes to the New Kingdom, the era of expansion. Ancient Egyptians conquered all the way east to the Fertile Crescent Mesopotamia area, and the gold treasures they got from the conquering made Egypt strong and rich. That is why a lot of temples and statues were built during the New Kingdom. So one pharaoh from the New Kingdom was very interesting for his bold religious reformation in Egypt. That is Amenhotep IV. So Amenhotep IV, along with his wife Nefertiti, proposed a monotheistic religion, saying that there is only one god, and that is the sun god Aton. He later changed his name to Akhenaten, meaning Aton's servant. Well, of course, this is very outrageous back then, because it's basically denying the old religion that people believe in for thousands of years. And of course, the priests are very angry, and they fought back Akhenaten hard. Finally, he loses his power and got erased from ancient Egyptians' history. Thereafter, a lot of problems emerged in Egypt, and they are frequently being conquered. First by the Assyrians, then the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabians. So during this process, its traditions and cultures were just lost and disappeared. But ancient Egyptians' role in history is absolutely important.